Welcome back to our absolute beginner tutorial for programming in C Sharp. In the previous lesson, I think we looked at if-else control flow. Today, we're going to look at another control flow. What we're going to look at today is loops. So, I think it might be better we look at a particular type of loops, a particular type of loop. There are actually two different ways you can create loops in C Sharp, I believe. Okay, actually, there are three different ways. There is the for each loop. Where's my notepad? Let me bring up notepad. So there are three different ways you can create loops. There is the while loop, which we are going to look at today, and there is the while loop actually looks okay. Maybe let's not go into details of the while loop. Let's just list out the three different ways you can create loops. So there's a while loop, there's the for loop like this, and then there's the for each loop. Okay. These are the three different ways you can create loops in Visual Studio. Sorry, in C Sharp. So today we're going to look at the first type, which I believe is the simplest, the while loop. So the while loop, the way you create the while loop looks like this. Remember we did Boolean expressions and we looked at the if-else statement yesterday. It's very similar. That is in the way you start it. You write your while keyword, WHILE, and then you open a normal bracket and close the normal bracket. Inside the open and close normal bracket, you're going to put a Boolean expression here, a Boolean expression. I hope people are beginning to see why I always say that the Boolean expression is very important. Almost in all your control flows, you're going to use the Boolean expression one way or the other. So you write your Boolean expression, and then on the next line, or you could also equally open it here, the curly brackets, but remember I always like keeping things neat. So in the next line, I open my curly bracket, which starts the beginning of the block or the scope for the while loop. You go ahead and close the while loop. So inside here, just like the if-else statement, you can have statement 1, your semicolon to end the statement, statement 2, and we'll just add a dot dot dot, signifying that you can have as many statements as you like inside here. So this is how the while loop, this is what the while loop looks like. This is how you create your while loop. And what is this loop? By the way, the loop, the spelling for the loop is LOOP. The loop, a loop is just, in programming, a loop is just like a repetition. Okay, it's like a repetition of certain lines of code. So for example, in this while loop, what we just created, we've provided a Boolean expression. Okay, now inside this block, as long as this Boolean expression remains true, okay, as long as this Boolean expression, the value of this Boolean expression remains true, these statements that you provide inside here, that's the commands you provide inside this block that's in between these curly brackets, are going to be executed. They will be repeated, they will be repeated again, they will keep repeating until this Boolean expression evaluates to false. Okay, so I think we should open up Visual Studio and look at what I mean by that, so we can see what how it works. So let's go ahead and open my apps folder on the desktop, my apps, my first apps, and this is the solution file. I'll double click on it. Visual Studio launches. I can go ahead and minimize this. Okay, so this is where we stopped in the previous. This is the code we wrote in the previous lesson. I think we can go ahead and remove this code. Okay, or maybe we should just instead of removing it, let's just comment it out. Remember the way you comment, you open a forward slash followed by an asterisk, and then at the end where I want the to end the statement, I put an asterisk followed by a forward slash. So that comments out everything here. So the computer is going to ignore everything here in my code. Okay, so it's as if this static void main is completely empty because everything inside here has been commented out. So let's create our while loop. Yes, so I was saying the while loop looks like this. You write your while keyword and then you open your normal bracket. Inside the normal bracket you put a boolean expression. Okay, let's say okay, let's create a variable before the while loop. Let's say int x equals 5, for example. Okay, we put the semicolon there, and then we say while x is less than 10. Okay, and then we open the curly bracket for the while block, and then inside here I'm going to do something like console dot write line, and then in here I'll say this is this statement was written by a loop. Okay, so let's look at this. Okay, another thing I'd like to do just before we go out of the while loop, I'm going to add this x equals or assign x plus 1. If you remember at the beginning, or I think it's the second lesson, we looked at something like this. What this is saying in programming context is, remember x is a variable. Look at it here. We declared the variable as 5, and that we assigned 5 into x. So here what we're saying is take the value of x, which is 5, add 1, that's at this point, add 1 to it, which makes 6, and then store it back into x variable. Okay, so that's what this line of code is saying. Now I would like to introduce you to a shorthand way of writing something like this. Now this code that I just wrote, x equals x plus 1, can actually be written in shorthand in C++ like this: x plus equal 1. Okay, this code is exactly the same. In fact, let's comment it here. This code is exactly the same as x equals x plus 1. So they exactly this code x equals x plus 1 is exactly the same as writing it this way. Okay, this is just a shorthand of writing, like if you like, call it like a shortcut. Okay, if you notice, this is shorter to write than this. Now to make things even shorter, there's a shorter way to write this, which is something like this: x plus plus. Okay, so this is a valid statement in C#. Okay, you can actually write something like this. What this is saying is just increment whatever is stored inside x, increment it by 1, and then store the result back inside x. Okay, that's the meaning of this x plus plus. Okay, it's also the same as writing something like x equals x plus 1. It's also the same as writing x plus equals 1. Okay, so we're going to use the shortest way of writing it. We're going to use the x plus plus. Okay, enough about that. This is just an explanation of this line of code. Now, if we look at this program that we've just written, we declare, let's go over it and see how the program is going to behave. We declare this int x, okay? We declare this x variable and we store 5 inside this x variable. Now, in this while loop, the first thing, when the program executes this line of code, the next line of code to be executed is this, okay? Remember, this is a Boolean expression, x is less than 10. At this point, that's the first time the program encounters this while loop. X at this point is 5, okay? 5 is less than 10. It's true, okay? So this Boolean expression evaluates to true, which means it should go ahead and execute this block, okay? So it will come in here and do console.writeLine. This statement was written by a loop, and that means remember what console.writeLine does. It outputs this onto the console. Okay, remember our console, that's the that thing that looks like the command line interface. It will just write this statement was written by a loop. Okay, then it comes down here and executes this x plus plus. Remember, at this time x is 5, so x is now incremented by 1, so x is now 6. Okay, by the time it executes this, the value stored in x becomes 6. So it exits. By the time it comes here to exit this loop, remember this is a loop. So when it comes to exit here, what happens? It goes back. That's why it's called a loop. Okay, it goes back to this while statement. That's how a loop behaves. Instead of it to come down, by the time it comes down, the program is supposed to terminate. No, it won't do that, because this is a loop. It will go back to this while statement. Okay, now remember, we have incremented at this point, we have incremented x by 1, so x is now 6. It will now check 6 is less than 10. Is that true? Yes, 6 is less than 10. So this evaluates to true, which means this is going to be executed again. Okay, so it'll come in here, console.writeLine. This statement was written by a loop. It outputs this again, so it writes this the second time. Okay, and then it increments x by 1 again. So now x becomes 7 because x is x plus 1. That's what happens here. Remember, this is the second iteration we're going into. So 6 is stored in x at this point. So by incrementing by 1, it now turns to 7. So 7 is stored. It exits here, comes back to this while loop again. Okay, now that is how this code keeps executing around and around and around. Remember, at the point where x becomes 9, 9 is less than 10. Okay, that is true. So it comes in here, writes this statement was written by a loop, increments x by 1. Now x is 10. Okay, by the time it exits here, it comes back here to this while loop, this while statement. Now remember, x is now 10. 10 is less than 10. That is false. Okay, now because this has evaluated to false, this block is not going to be executed, which means from here the code, your execution skips this block and then comes down here and exits here, and then because there's no any other statements to be executed, it exits the program and the program terminates. Okay, so now if you notice, by doing this, we have created a loop that executes this block. That's these two statements here are executed 5 times. Okay, we expect it to be 5. Let's validate it's 5. Remember, for the first at the time it starts, x is 5. It executes this, x is now 6. Remember, that's 1. It executes this again, that's 2. X is now 7. It executes again, that's 3 times. X is now 8. Executes again, that's 4 times. X is now 9. It executes this again, that's 5, and x is 10. So it executes these two 5 times before it exits. Now let's run this program and see if we're right about what we just did. So I've clicked on the play, and yeah, exactly. So let's count. Look at this. This is where it output. This is the first output. This statement was written by a loop. That's 1. This statement was written by a loop. That's 2. This statement was written by a loop. That's 3. This statement was written by a loop. That's 4. This statement was written by a loop. That's 5. Exactly. Do you see how powerful something like this can become in programming? Imagine if you wanted to write this 100 times. Remember our punishment in nursery schools, where we are asked to write a certain thing, like I will never not do my assignment again. Like, we're asked to write it 100 times. Imagine if you were asked to write a program that allows you to write that 100 times. What happens? You just turn this, you initialize this to 1, right? And then you change this to 100. So that's int x is 1, and the condition for it to keep repeating this statement is to until when x, as long as the way you read this is keep executing these statements as long as x is less than 100. You understand what I mean? Now that means that these two statements are going to keep executing until x becomes 100. Now, since at the beginning x is 1, it means this will be executed 100 times. What about 1,000? It's as simple as adding a 0 here. Okay, that's how powerful loops are. Let's run this program, by the way, and see what happens. Look at how fast. Just imagine. Look at how fast this program was written. It outputs all these. It has output your all this text in less than a second. Okay. Now, believe me or not, even if this was 1,000,000 times, I'm pretty sure it would not take up to a second for it to execute everything here. In fact, we can test that and see. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's a million. That's a million. Yeah. Let's run this and see how many seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. I'm disappointed. 17, 18, 19, 20. Oh, that's terrible. You let me down. Okay, the speed of the computer really let me down, and I believe the reason why it's taking so long, I'm not so sure, but I didn't expect it to take this long. Let's see how long it will take. By the way, I think we're almost approaching a minute now. Let's assume it's a minute now. 1, 2, 3, 4. Finally, it's done. I think it took it almost let's say a minute, about a minute and a few seconds. So yes, that's another thing you should keep in mind. Even though the computer is very fast, obviously there is a limit to its speed. So anyway, I really didn't expect to see it take this long just to output 1,000,000 lines of text. But anyway, it's still, if you think about it, a million taking like a minute to output compared to the human speed. That's still phenomenal, isn't it? Okay, I think we're going to end this lesson here, and we'll see how to use the for loop in the next lesson.